Greetings everyone, this is Connor from Dagora TV, and this is my top 10 games of 2017. Okay, I know I've been away for a while, but I've been making a pretty big video that I want to be returning back with when I start making videos regularly. It's not going to be out by the end of the year, so I wanted to come back anyway and give you my top 10 games of the year and do my top 10 list that I do at every year's end. Before I get into it though, I've got one honourable mention. It was quite tough to actually get the games onto the list. I actually had to sit down and thought about it for actually a few hours to see what was going to go on the list. But then Resident Evil 7 didn't quite make the cut, but I thought it was worthy enough of a shout out. I thought it brought the series back to its horror roots. It was a special game this year, kicked off the year remarkably well. We had a real good start to this year as well in 2017. A really atmospheric game as well, which, you know, you don't really seem to get that much in horror games anymore, where the atmosphere is really the most important part of them, I feel anyway, that has an effect on me. Really cool hidden story and a lot of secrets in it, and I thought it deserved a shout out even if it didn't make the list. So Resident Evil 7 is my honourable mention. But anyway, let's cut to the chase. Let's get to the top 10 games of 2017. 10. So Pyre is a game that's been made by Supergiant Games, who are known to be making, you know, games like Transistor and Bastion, which are very narrative-heavy games, very audio-based, a lot of, you know, a kind of a narrator that really takes you through the story. And, you know, in Bastion you've got a narrator that's overlooking the whole thing and kind of telling the story, and in Transistor it's your sword talking to you. And then Pyre goes a completely different area than these two games, which were really critically well received and sold well, and is really one of my favourite indie developers. And what they decided to do was take it to like a basketball style sport, where it's like a 3v3 kind of thing, where it's like a sport tournament in this world that we kind of really learn about throughout the game. But the game is very much text based, not a lot of narration at all really, and there's a lot of reading to do. If you're a player that doesn't really like reading, this isn't the game for you. But as someone who really does like to get involved into the world, read every book, read every single dialogue option that I've got, I had a great time with this game, learned a lot about the world. And then the world building is really what got it onto the list, because that's something that I think has been lacking a lot of these kind of, not, I wouldn't say sport games, you know, really, but these kind of games that take on unique ideas when it comes down to, you know, turn-based strategy and stuff. You know, they kind of seem to leave out a lot of the world building in regards to, you know, the dialogue. It's very much seems to be more around the focus of the fight that we're going to be having. There's other games that do it phenomenally well, you know, like the Banner Saga is one that comes into mind. And Pyre, I think, is no different. I think the sport style that they have with the game is really interesting, because there's so many different things you can do as like tactics wise when it comes down to it. Like, for instance, I like to go with the bruiser kind of style thing to kind of basically get at my opponents, whereas I've seen other people online kind of go the more telepathic route, you know, where you kind of going along the pitch really quickly and everything. And I thought it was a really cool idea. I thought it worked well. It's quite a lot of meat to the game as well. You get a lot of value for your buck. And I think it's kind of been a little bit overlooked. It hasn't really done that well for Supergiant. And I feel like, even though I don't think it's to the quality of Transistor and Bastion, I still think it was a really good game. And it deserved a place on the list. And it just picked Resident Evil 7 for me. 9. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice by Ninja Theory. This is a game that's actually got quite a little bit of buzz, you know, when it came out. I think it took a little while to get going, but the unique idea of the game kind of trying to make a statement of mental illness is something that really, it kind of turned me off from the game a little bit. You know, I don't really like games that tend to be making, you know, huge political statements all the time and everything, but I thought I deserved to give this game a go due to the quality of the presentation of the game, and I thought they did an absolutely magnificent job of what they were trying to tell. The blending the whole idea of mental illness with the kind of Norse culture and Norse mythology really worked well. You know, it really told the story and kind of helped you understand the character, and the voices you're experiencing inside Senua's head was really, really, really interesting to see, and a good way to tell the story, as well as something that and I think a lot of people don't have a great understanding about. And I really felt that as well, that Ninja Theory really did a good job at telling really how, I won't say how it feels, but what really the experience is like. You know, we have a mental illness advisor on the game as well, what we see in the early credits when you're going through the boat with Senua. And even though I think some of the ways, you know, trying to get through the levels a little bit frustrating at times, trying to find shapes and things to open gates, I didn't really dig a huge amount, but I thought the combat was really interesting, and something that's not really got that much praise in the game is the combat. And really, I think it was a cool idea as well, because every time you fail, a little bit more of the curse takes over your body, and the more times you fail, they had a delete and save mechanic, which I think has been removed now in a patch. I thought that was a really interesting idea, which some people gave it a bit of stick, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that if you were too bad enough, then they had a real story reason of why you'd go back and have to start again because you failed your journey. And I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting, to be honest with you. I thought the game was quite unique to the year, and I feel like it's correctly deserved a lot of its praise because it's very, very, very innovative from in your theory. Great. Emily is Away 2, which is the sequel to Emily's Away, and this was made by one guy, Kyle Seeley, and it's basically like an instant messenger game, only a couple of hours long, where you're talking to two people. You're talking to Punk for Eva and Emily, and basically you're trying to keep up with the conversation. You know, you have different things with them both. You learn about the characters. There's 3 different settings of the game, and you really do learn a lot about really what's going on. You're playing like I'd say like an early teen, like 13, 14 years of age when you're talking to these people. No, actually, no, you're in the final year of school. You actually talk about prom, so no, it's maybe about 16, 17, 18, going towards that area. And it's a really, really cool idea. It's a really great throwback to the like mid-2000s time. You know, a lot of really cool references to, you know, pop culture back in those days and everything. Something that, to be honest, I kind of forgot about because, you know, I was kind of partaking in pop culture at that time when, you know, my age, I'm just a 20-year-old bloke, so, you know, it was a little tiny bit before the time when I was fully engrossed in it, but I got pretty much all the stuff that was in there and everything. I thought it was a really interesting time because to really play a game, because it's something that's kind of, you don't really get that much, I think, and hopefully we'll get a bit more of that in the future. I thought the way that they kind of really used our instant messenger in the game as well was so cool, and the real way that, you know, you dialogue with these characters and the way that they types the message and everything was a really cool throwback. And I thought it was really, you know, a real good nostalgia trick. It's a good length as well. It's not too long. I played it all in one session. I had a great time with the game, personally. I thought it was also, you know, it's barely anything, you know, to it as well. It's only a few dollars. It wasn't really anything to do with cost or anything that would be keeping people away from this game at all, in my opinion. I think the way it captured how teens behave was spectacular, and, you know, the ever-changing drama and everything, the whole thing, and, you know, the first steps you take in life when you come to that teenage years and everything was really cool. It was really cool to look at and to play. A really unique idea, and I thought it really deserved the place on the list. So Emily's Away 2 by Kyle Seeley. 7. Okay, a bit of a preface before we talk about Wolfenstein is that I think from really 7 to 3 on this list, I could really put anywhere. I could honestly go anywhere from 3 to 7. You put any game in any of the places, because they're all so good quality, and it was kind of really hard to kind of pick them. But I've made my decision, really. I've made my decision of what I want to go with. And number 7 was Wolfenstein II by Machine Games. Loved the first one. I love this series so much, really. I think, really, when it comes down to it, Wolfenstein is such a unique and really, really cool setting. You know, playing against the Nazis. Nazis have won the war. You've seen how technology's changed. In the game as well, you get to see behind the curtain as well of what life is really like as the Nazis for people, you know, in the Roswell level, when you're seeing, you know, the parade through the streets and you're in the cafe and things like that. And you get a real good look at what it's like. And there's so many really cool what the fuck moments in the story. You know, there's one with Fire Angle, which was really spectacular. When there's one as well when you're auditioning for a part in a show. It's been really, really, really great. And I thought the way they told the story, the narrative was really cool. The real moments as well of absolute batshit craziness, when, you know, and it makes sense for it as well because they foreshadow it, and it kind of really fits into the tone of the game. I thought, if I'm going to be honest with you, the action levels and the you know, the level design wasn't as good as the first, which maybe keeps it quite low down on the list. But I really, really loved the time with that. I'm going to play through the game again. I chose the Wyatt storyline. Next one I'm going to go through the Fergus one, because I feel like I've heard there's a bit more of a difference between the two storylines there was in the first one. And I feel like this franchise is really, really, really interesting. I want to see them do another one. I think there's enough room for them to do another one with the way the game ends and everything. They'd have to get a different enemy in that we don't know about. The cast of characters you've got as well, and your kind of home base was really cool to go around and talk. And I feel like, yeah, like Wolfenstein kind of Machine Games went and hit it out the park again with Wolfenstein 2. They keep on doing it, and I feel like they go more toward the narrative-based story, which is something that I kind of really like. I like to see the way they tell the story and the different levels you get. I just want to see more from Wolfenstein, and I hope the success that Wolfenstein 2 has had is kind of picked up a lot in sales recently over the past few weeks, and I hope it really, we get another one. 6. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I can see loads of people typing the comments in how it's so low down the list, because I understand. People really do love Zelda, you know, it's won the Game Awards, Game of the Year. People really, really love this game. I completely understand why. But the reason why it's 6th on my list is, while I do think it's a special game, and I actually played the game on Wii U, I rented a Wii U from the shadiest game shop you've ever seen in Manchester. And I feel like, while Zelda was really good at things like the world design, just exploring the world and looking at stuff was really great, and the little tiny puzzles that they had throughout the world to, you know, just to get loot and things. The shrines were my favourite part of the game, you know, they were really fantastic, and using the different abilities that you get to manipulate them was really great, and there's a lot of them as well, there's a lot to behold here. But there's a couple of frustrating mechanics that I think keep it a bit further down, that kind of, they didn't ruin my experience, because I think it's a great game, and I still think everyone who buys a Switch needs to get this game first. I think it's the best game on Switch, if I'm going to be honest with you. That and Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, I haven't played that, so I can't say that is guaranteed, but I think that what I've seen, Zelda is truly a magnificent game, of what I played of it as well. You know, I played through it. I thought the frustrating mechanics were like weapon degradation, and some of the imbalances with temperature, like when you put a flaming sword on your back to keep you warm in the, you know, the snowy areas of the map and things, because that's something that I would give praise for the game. The things that you think would work, like if I put a flaming sword on my back, would that keep you warm? It does keep you warm, and things like that. And you know, you've really got to maintain your temperature of yourself, or else you will start losing health in the game. But what my issue was is that when you go from like a snowy place to like a warm place, or a warm place to a snowy place, quite quickly, and you kind of forget, it's very, very punishing if you know how it goes to, and you've got to really kind of work in one area before you'll be able to move on into the map. And I don't think that suited the level design, the design of the world of the game, to be honest with you, because I think in narrative heavy games like The Witcher and Horizon and stuff like that, I feel like you can do the rubber banding level system quite well. You know, you can say like, alright, you need to work in this area and then you explore the story, because it makes sense with how the story is told. Whereas Zelda doesn't really have a story. Well, it does have a story, but it's not really the focus of why people are playing the game. You kind of want to explore more, and it kind of restricted you, and it kind of like left a bit of a dull experience in my eyes in that area of the game. But everything else was really, really great. And I don't have the history with the franchise either, so it wasn't as treasured to me as it was for other people. I didn't really get a lot of the nostalgic moments, because I didn't really grow up with the Zelda franchise, to be honest with you. This is the only second Zelda game I've actually played. But it was definitely a really great experience. If I ever buy a Switch, I'd probably replay the game again to play it on that system. I'd definitely recommend anyone to really get the game if you're thinking about it. It's a great world to look at. It's a really great world to look at. I love the art style of the game. And it was just a couple of mechanics that keep it at 6. I feel like I have to explain why it's so low down the list, which is why I think people will always... I think it's a game that kind of explains itself of how great the game is, to be honest with you. And it definitely deserves a place on it, undoubtedly. It's just it didn't quite make the top 5, because I feel like the other games that I've got above it are all, you know, all these games really from 7 upwards are all really what I'd class as a 9 out of 10. It's just that the 5 I've got above it, I'd probably say I enjoyed my time with a bit more, because there wasn't as much frustrating mechanics as there was in Zelda for me. 5. Number 5, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Wow, well this really is kind of been the most talked about game of the year. It's kind of been the breakout game of the year, really. And while it is jank, 1.0 is coming. I've played the test server, and it's definitely a very different game in the test server of what it is at the minute in the current game. But I just feel like the game is so enjoyable. The way that the game is set out in this Battle Royale state is really, really fun. You know, really great to go in there with a couple of friends. And the communication you get when all the action kind of kicks into the gear really gets for some great moments. You know, when you actually go as a team, you see some people attack and you defend them, and you actually defend against them, or you don't see some people attack you, and you're able to get out of a situation and kill them and things like that, and actually win a game. It's my favourite game to actually win in. You know, in games like, you know, first-person shooters like Battlefield or Call of Duty, Titanfall, when you win a game, it doesn't feel that special. I feel like you win a game quite a lot in there, especially if you're playing team deathmatch or something like that. Whereas in this, I've got friends who played the game for, you know, 50, nearly 100 hours, and they haven't won a game yet. I've won twice, and they were the 2 greatest experiences of my entire life. I've got to tell you that right now. Getting the chicken dinner is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. You know, it's just such a fist-pumpy moment. The concentration, the kind of the heart palpitations that you get when people are getting nearby, or when the action's getting really drawn, or you feel like you hear gunfire near to, and how careful you have to be and everything. the quiet times really make that action more impactful, and I think that's what really makes it enjoyable, and that's the kind of the real good nature of the game. And I feel like, again, most of the people listening to this will have played it at some point, unless you're a console gamer. It's coming to Xbox soon, so definitely give it a go if you haven't played it yet. I think it's a game that I don't feel like I have to explain why people enjoy it as well. Again, like kind of a similar thing to Zelda, because it's so easy to see. I think anyone can see it and see like 100 people get dropped into map, last one alive. It's just an easily enjoyable experience. It's kind of similar to how they did the Hunger Games in Minecraft kind of thing. It's a Hunger Games style game, really. And I think that's fun. I think it's a really fun idea, and I think that people should, yeah, definitely give it a go. And I think the players as well that maybe dropped off for the game, I don't think there's too many of them because it's the main game on Steam, will definitely want to come back as well when 1.0 comes in, because the desert map is really different, and it really kind of revitalizes the game for me as well, because we kind of know what that map is like. You know, the map that we've got at the minute, the kind of Russian-based island. We know what that's like, so getting a brand new map, learning it again, learning the new hotspots and everything is going to be really, really interesting. And seeing how that plays, I've had a few games on it so far, and it's been a bit of a mess for me personally, just because we don't know where to go and where is a good place to kind of defend and things. But just seeing a new colour of scenery and everything, new cut of paint on the game, I've enjoyed massively. Four. So number 4 is Hollow Knight, and this is by Team Cherry and really been designed by William Pellin. And I've never really been a fan of Metroidvanias personally, apart from really Guacamelee. There's not really been one that's kind of grasped me and kept going, because I felt like as a design of the game and how you kind of control your character was a bit naff. But it kind of takes a lot of inspiration by platformers, I'd say. Hollow Knight does with how you control your character, because it's very, very tight. Like in levels like the White Palace, which is one of the most fucked up levels I've ever played in a game, was really, really kind of interesting to explore, and you always felt like you had control of your character. You never felt like it was bullshit of why you died. Well, I didn't, at least, anyway. And I feel like it's kind of been overlooked for this year, because I feel like the kind of genre that it's in and the size of the game has kind of intimidated people. And it intimidated me at first, but I kept going with the game, and I really, really loved it. I loved it at the time I've had with it. I've kept coming back to it off and on again throughout the year, and it's been kind of a consistent returning to game for me. And while some of the areas of the world are absolutely epic and really like, what the fuck, how am I going to do this when you get there, you do work your way through them and you learn as you go along. And the innovative mechanic of killing your ghost, of your dead corpse when you die in the game, going back and killing him to get your stuff back, was something that at times left me, you know, it was really frustrating and left me in a trap. But I always thought it was a cool idea and kind of changed it up a bit and added some sort of difficulty to the game and some sort of kind of challenge and really kind of impact of dying and things like that, because a game that I didn't put on the list because I didn't play it was Mario Odyssey, but I played like about a few hours of it, 2-3 hours of it, a game, well, because my friend has a Switch, and when I played it there, the kind of the consequence of dying, there didn't feel like there was one, and that kind of really made me look back on Hollow Knight and feel like, yeah, really, the kind of consequence that you feel of dying in the game really added to it, you know, to kind of tense nature of it, and kind of feel like a real fist bump when you get through a level, and picking and choosing times when to go through certain zones and everything. And the combat was great, the dodging that you do in the game was really cool as well. The checkpoints in the game were, I felt like they were fair enough, you know, they wasn't some kind of like it is in new games now where every single time you turn a corner, but you had to get through a bit of challenge to get to a checkpoint. But when it was a time when you got to the checkpoint, it was like, thank Christ, you know, like, thank you, we've hit it, kind of thing. And you can kind of sit back and kind of breathe a little bit. And I feel like the amount of quality content that's in the game as well is something that I think you get a lot of, you know, bang for your buck, really. I feel like people really need to give this game a go. I feel like a lot of people have overlooked it. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I was kind of surprised when making the list. I was like, where do I put it? Do I put it, you know, is Zelda better than it? But then I thought, you know what? I think I actually preferred Hollow Knight to all the other games to list. So that's why it deserves at number 4. 3. Number 3 is What Remains of Edith Finch. This is by Giant Sparrow. It's an indie game, kind of a short style indie game as well. Another 2-3 hour experience like we've got with Emily's Away too. I've really enjoyed these games this year. These kind of like short narrative experiences and stuff, because the ones that you can kind of cover in one sitting. And really, it's the best narrative that I've played in a game in a long time. You know, it's a bunch of short stories about this kind of cursed family that come over to America from Scandinavia. And you're learning about really how the family is cursed and the different trials and tribulations of them, and the different kind of I'd say the different kind of the different issues that these people have with their lives, and like there's one that's a child actor that trying to get back and rediscover her fame. There's one that's a guy who kind of went a bit insane and started living under the house, and no one knew that he was there. And there's one that's consistent in this family, which is Edith Finch, and really finding out really about the different art styles it toys with as well, of how it tells the different stories of these different ancestors was really great. There's one real special one where there's a guy in a fish factory that just loses his imagination and just goes crazy with it, and I thought that was really, really cool. And I just felt like the way that they told the story really made it impactful. It's quite a sad game as well. There's a lot of sad moments in it as well, which kind of really left a mark on me. And it was a game as well that I played really because it was on my friend's Steam. And I thought, okay, let's give this a go, and I'm really glad that I did. I'd recommend anyone to give it a go, because if it's a game where, you know, you want to be killing people, it's not that kind of game. You know, it's a game which is really just a story. It's a walking simulator, if you want to call it that. But I feel like the way that they told it's a very arty style game, and I really, really enjoyed it. I felt like it's a right length of it as well. It's one that people can really kind of give it a go for a couple of hours, play through the whole game, and not feel like they've wasted a lot of time if they don't enjoy it. The way that they tell how more about the characters as well, with the different rooms you go in, was really interesting. And yeah, it definitely deserves a place high up on the list. I think some people say it's maybe too high because of the length of the game, but it left a mark on me. It was a game that I thought about for quite a long time after I played it as well, which I think warrants its place on number 3. 2. At number 2, it's Cuphead by MDHR. This is a game that's all about its art style, all about its theme, and all about its music, really, that really drove people home to them old cartoons that you'd see on, you know, the Cartoon Network and things like that when you was a child, you know, the old Looney Tunes and old Mickey Mouse cartoons that you'd see once in a while. And yeah, it really was a great experience. I think the game was so tight. There's 4 worlds really, 3 major ones and one kind of end casino world that you have. And it was such a tropey story. It really harms on them tropes of like the old cartoons, which I really, really loved. I loved seeing that. Different guns and weapons in the game as well that really make the boss rush modes really enjoyable. And I feel like the blend as well between the boss rush and the kind of run and gun modes really made it a really cool experience as well. They added the run and gun modes in after they showcased the game for the first time in 2014 at E3. And yeah, I thought it really made the game a lot of fun. It's a tough game. It's a really tough game, actually. But I feel like the length of the levels, they're only like 2 minutes long, that when you die, you feel like, alright, I can give this one another go, and another go, and another go, and another go. Because you're having like around about 50 to 100 attempts per level, or at least I did anyway. And it takes a while to get through them, but it doesn't feel like it's taking long because of how kind of short the levels are, and you learn them as well. It's a game where you're learning a lot about how to control your character. It's a very tight controlled game as well, and I thought it was a lot of fun, a real big, huge amount of fun. And it only took me about 10 hours to complete. Well, I feel like it's a very rewarding game. I may have to go back sometime and play it on the hardest difficulty again. Some really cool different dynamics and different like level design as well, with the playing levels and things like that. Really cool. MDHR knocked it out of the park. They said they're going to be making another Cuphead game, and I'm very much looking forward to when that comes out. What? I don't think anyone that's watched my channel for any reasonable amount of time will be surprised that number 1 is Horizon Zero Dawn by Guerrilla. These are my favourite kind of games, you know, the open world action RPGs with a real deep narrative, and my favourite kind of video game. And I feel like Guerrilla absolutely knocked it out of the park. You can go back in time and watch my old E3 videos, watch my old episodes of the podcast, and you can really see how much I shit on Horizon before it comes out, thinking it's going to be boring. I didn't like Guerrilla games at all before Horizon came out. I don't like Killzone, so I was like, the game's going to look pretty, but it's going to be boring, and I couldn't have been more wrong. It's such a unique take on the post-apocalyptic world, with a real deep story of how everything came about with, you know, the machines and everything that roam around in the world. Unique enemy types as well, you know, kind of robotic dinosaurs is something that everyone, when people first saw them, first was kind of like, what the fuck? But it really works well. The story of the game is magnificent. The different tribes you see in the game as well really drive home the political nature of the game, and there's a lot of politics going around. And what's left behind by the old world definitely still has a presence on the new areas, and it's a post-apocalyptic world that's really kind of rebuilt quite well. You know, it's not one that's really just been left there kind of thing, and you know, you're just going back in and it's kind of been built around what's been there, like, you know, the Fallout games, for instance. It's a game world that's really kind of taken on a new life, and people are doing well and starting to operate and really do what they want to do in the game and everything like that. While the ruins of the old cities and stuff like that are still there and they've not been removed completely, you do get to see the new areas of the world, like the new major cities and things like that, are really breathtaking to behold. And the changings in landscape and the various different biomes are really cool. I can't wait to play the DLC. And the story of the game, my god, the characters left such a mark on me. It's the best story I've played this year, 100% by that. And I can't wait to see what else they do with the series, what they go on from here. They get a bit of a post-credit scene which has a bit of a cliffhanger about one of the characters that you meet in the game. I don't really want to spoil anything because the story of the game is what you get. And there's a point in the game when you're kind of learning kind of how to be a warrior, really, in the early parts of the game. I'd say from that point onwards, the game is a full-on hits it out the park. Like, I had such a great time with it. I had probably one of the longest sessions I've ever played with the game. If I had to finish this game off, I played the game for 14 hours straight, no break. I was literally at a point where I was like, I need to know what happens. The story, there's a certain point when you first going through the world and you start hearing a voice, a different character's voice talking to you. I won't say who it is, I won't want to spoil it. But from that point onwards, I was like, I need to see what happens with this story. And I played all the way through it to the end, and I didn't regret it at all. Fantastic game, fantastic story. People need to give this a go, especially ones who are fans of my kind of games, you know, that watch my channel who really enjoy the deep stories in games, stuff like that. And yeah, it's been a great year for video games this year. Not really been a great year for the industry in regards to, you know, the different controversies been going around and loot boxes and stuff like that. But for games this year, I think it's been special, and I think Horizon Zero Dawn was the best one for me. I enjoyed it the most, and I can't wait to see what Guerrilla Games do next. Thanks a lot for watching. Please leave a comment of what your top 10 games of the year are. I really hope to see different varieties in the list and stuff like that. Have a go at me if the game that you loved isn't on this list, or if a game's on too low. I'm gonna get a lot of Zelda ones on here, but I feel like I was kind to Zelda. I feel like Zelda deserves a place on the list. Number 6, not a bad spot. You know, it's my top 10 was quite hard. There's a lot of games I actually left off this list which I thought were quite tight and didn't give a shout out to, but I made a list. I made my decision. I'm gonna stand by it. So please let me know what you think of the list as a whole. Follow me on Twitter, DegoraC. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.